Rachel Torres had always hated needles. Even as a grown woman of 32, the sight of one made her stomach flip a little. But there she was, walking through the glass doors of the Red Cross Donation Center on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday morning in March, ready to let someone stick a needle in her arm for the 100th time. Well, maybe not the 100th time, but it sure felt like it after 8 years of regular donations. The funny thing about fear is how you can get used to it. Rachel remembered her very first donation back in college. Her hands had been shaking so badly that the nurse had to hold them steady. That was right after her roommate Becca got into that horrible car accident on Interstate 5. Becca needed so much blood that night, bags and bags of it, and Rachel felt completely helpless sitting in that hospital waiting room. When Becca finally recovered, she told Rachel that 7 different people had donated the blood that saved her life. 7 strangers who had taken time out of their day to help someone they would never meet. That stuck with Rachel. The idea that you could save a life just by sitting in a chair for 45 minutes seemed almost too simple to be true. So she started donating. At first it was once a year, then twice a year. Then she got into a rhythm of every few months scheduling her donations like dentist appointments, ordinary and routine. The donation center near her office in downtown Portland had become familiar territory. The waiting room had those same uncomfortable plastic chairs that every medical facility seemed to have, scattered magazines that were always at least 6 months old, and a water cooler that made a weird gurgling sound when you filled your cup. Rachel knew this place like she knew her favorite coffee shop. She even recognized some of the other regular donors, though they never really talked, just exchanged those polite nods that strangers give each other when they keep running into one another. "Rachel, good to see you again," called out Nurse Patricia from behind the front desk. Patricia was probably in her 50s with reading glasses that hung on a beaded chain around her neck, and a smile that made everyone feel like they were visiting a favorite aunt. She had been working there for as long as Rachel had been donating, maybe longer. "Hey Patricia, how's your garden doing?" Rachel asked, signing in on the clipboard. "Oh, you know the slugs are winning the battle this year. I swear they're getting smarter." Patricia handed her the standard paperwork. "You know the drill. Fill this out even though we both know nothing's changed since last time." Rachel took the forms to a quiet corner. "Have you traveled outside the country?" "No." "Have you gotten any new tattoos?" "No." "Have you been feeling sick?" "No." The questions were always the same. A checklist of things that might make your blood unsafe for someone else. She filled it out quickly, her handwriting getting messier toward the end like it always did when she was rushing through something boring. The waiting room was pretty empty that morning. Just Rachel and an older gentleman reading a newspaper. The actual paper kind that was getting harder and harder to find these days. She checked her phone, scrolling through work emails that could definitely wait, trying not to think about the needle that was coming. After 8 years, you'd think the anticipation would go away, but it never quite did. Rachel Torres? A young nurse she didn't recognize appeared in the doorway with a clipboard. "We're ready for you." The donation room was exactly as she remembered from 3 months ago. 6 big reclining chairs set up in 2 rows, separated by privacy curtains. Most of them were empty. Rachel settled into the chair by the window, the one she always picked when it was available. Something about being able to look outside made the whole thing feel less clinical. The new nurse introduced herself as Monica and started checking Rachel's blood pressure and temperature, making small talk about the weather. It had been raining for 2 weeks straight, typical for Portland in March, and everyone was desperate for sunshine. "Your blood pressure's great," Monica said, wrapping up the cuff, "and I see you're AB negative." "That's pretty rare, you know," Rachel nodded. She'd heard this before. Only about 1% of the population had AB negative blood, which made her feel like she was in some kind of exclusive club that nobody actually wanted to be in. But it also made her donations more valuable. AB negative is a universal plasma donor, which meant her blood could help more people in emergencies. "We're actually really glad you came in today," Monica continued, prepping the needle. "We got a call this morning from Portland General. They have a patient in emergency surgery who needs AB negative, and our supply was running low." "Oh," Rachel said, feeling a little flutter of something in her chest. Pride maybe? Or just the satisfaction of good timing. "I'm glad I could help." Monica smiled and started feeling for a vein in Rachel's arm. "You're a regular donor, right?" "I can always tell. You guys have the best veins," Rachel laughed nervously. "I don't know if that's a compliment, but I'll take it." "Okay, here comes the pinch." Monica warned. Rachel looked away toward the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. The needle went in, and yes, it still hurt, but not as much as that first time. More like a sharp pressure than actual pain. She could feel the slight tug as blood started flowing through the tube into the collection bag. "You're all set?" Monica said, adjusting the tube. "Just relax for about 10 minutes. Squeeze the ball every few seconds to keep things moving. You want some juice or cookies? Maybe after. Thanks." Monica moved on to check on the older gentleman across the room, and Rachel was left alone with her thoughts and her phone. She pulled up her messages and texted her girlfriend Jen. "Donating blood will be back at the office in an hour." Jen replied immediately with a heart emoji and "my hero." Rachel smiled. Jen was always supportive of her donations, even though she couldn't donate herself because of a medical condition. She said she donated vicariously through Rachel, which was sweet even if it didn't quite work that way. The bag slowly filled with dark red blood, and Rachel tried not to look at it too directly. That part still made her a little queasy. Instead, she watched the rain and thought about her afternoon meetings. She had a presentation at 2 o'clock that she wasn't quite prepared for, and she mentally ran through her talking points. This was the weird thing about donating blood. You were literally giving away a piece of yourself, something that was keeping you alive, and it felt so ordinary. No drama, no fanfare. Just sitting in a chair squeezing a ball, watching the rain. Meanwhile, somewhere in the city, someone was fighting for their life, and this bag of blood might be the thing that saved them. Rachel thought about that person sometimes, the mystery recipient of her donations. Were they old or young? Did they have a family waiting in some hospital corridor, praying for good news? Did they know that strangers were giving their blood to keep them alive? She would never know, and that was okay. That was the whole point, really. Anonymous kindness, no strings attached, no thank you notes required, all done, Monica announced, appearing with gauze and tape. She removed the needle carefully and pressed the gauze against Rachel's arm. "Hold this here for a minute." "You did great." Rachel held the gauze while Monica wrapped her arm with that distinctive blue bandage that blood donors wore like a badge of honor. "Make sure you drink plenty of fluids today and eat something substantial. No heavy lifting for a few hours." "I know the drill," Rachel said, standing up slowly. She always felt a little lightheaded right after, even though she'd never actually fainted. At the refreshment station, Rachel grabbed a bottle of orange juice and a package of cookies. She sat at one of the small tables, taking her time, letting her body adjust. Patricia came over with a sticker that said, "I donated blood today," and stuck it on Rachel's shirt like she was a kindergartner. "You know, that blood you just donated is already on its way to the hospital," Patricia said. "Emergency surgery. They were waiting for it." "Really? That fast?" "When it's urgent, we don't waste time. Someone's life might depend on it." Rachel felt that flutter again, stronger this time. It was one thing to donate blood knowing it would help someone eventually. It was another thing entirely to know that somewhere right now, at this very moment, her blood was being used to save someone's life. She finished her juice, grabbed her bag, and headed back out into the rain. She had no idea that the person receiving her blood was someone she knew. Someone she hadn't spoken to in 12 years. Someone she never expected to see again. But that would come later. For now, she was just Rachel Torres, walking back to her office with a bandage on her arm and a sticker on her shirt, thinking about nothing more important than her 2 o'clock meeting. Sometimes the most extraordinary moments of our lives look completely ordinary while they're happening. 3 weeks passed, and Rachel had completely forgotten about that particular donation. Well, not forgotten exactly, but it had faded into the background of her life like all the others. She had her presentation. It went fine. She went home. She had dinner with Jen. She went to work the next day. Life moved on the way it always does, one unremarkable day after another. She was in the middle of organizing her kitchen when her phone rang. Unknown number, Portland area code. Rachel almost didn't answer. These days, unknown numbers usually meant spam calls about her car's extended warranty or someone claiming to be from the IRS. But something made her swipe to answer. "Hello?" "Hi, is this Rachel Torres?" The voice was professional but warm, a woman who sounded like she was reading from a script but trying to make it personal. "Yes, this is Rachel. My name is Diana, and I'm calling from the Red Cross Blood Services. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" Rachel's first thought was that something was wrong. Had her blood tested positive for something? Was she sick and didn't know it? Her heart started beating faster. Sure. Is everything okay? Oh, yes, everything's fine, Diana said quickly, clearly sensing the panic in Rachel's voice. I'm actually calling with some really special news. I'm with our donor relations department and we have a program that I want to tell you about. Rachel relaxed a little, moving to sit on her couch. Okay. You donated blood 3 weeks ago on March 15th. Do you remember that donation? Yeah, I remember. The nurse said it was going to an emergency surgery at Portland General. That's right. Well, what we don't usually tell donors is what happens after their donation for privacy reasons. But in rare cases, very rare cases when a donation makes an extraordinary impact and both parties consent, we facilitate a meeting between the donor and the recipient. Rachel's mind went blank for a second. She had been donating for 8 years and had never heard of this. You mean like I could meet the person who got my blood? Exactly. The recipient of your donation survived a very serious surgery that day. Without your blood arriving exactly when it did, the outcome would have been very different. The person would like to meet you and thank you in person. Of course, this is completely voluntary. We would never share your information without your permission. Rachel sat there, phone pressed to her ear, trying to process what she was hearing. In all her years of donating, she had made peace with the anonymity of it. She gave blood, it went to someone, she never knew who. That was the deal. The idea of actually meeting someone whose life she had saved felt enormous and strange and a little bit terrifying. Can you tell me anything about them? Rachel asked. I can tell you that the recipient is a woman, 57 years old. She had complications during what was supposed to be a routine surgical procedure. She lost a significant amount of blood and needed transfusions urgently. Your AB negative blood was exactly what she needed. A woman, 57. Around her mom's age, Rachel thought, then pushed the thought away. She hadn't thought about her mother in weeks, which was progress. Thinking about her mother never led anywhere good. She's been recovering well, Diana continued, and she specifically requested to meet you. She's very grateful. I don't know, Rachel said slowly. This is a lot to take in. I never donate thinking I'll meet anyone. That's completely understandable. Most donors feel the same way. There's no pressure at all. You can take some time to think about it, but Rachel knew herself. If she said she'd think about it, she would overthink it. Imagine every possible scenario, work herself into anxiety, and probably end up saying no just to avoid the discomfort. Sometimes you just had to jump. You know what? Okay, yes, I'll meet her. That's wonderful, Diana said, and she sounded genuinely happy. The recipient suggested meeting at a neutral location, somewhere comfortable. How about a coffee shop? There's a place called the Daily Grind on Morrison Street. Do you know it? Rachel knew it well. It was one of those cozy Portland coffee shops with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. She and Jen went there sometimes on Sunday mornings. Yeah, I know it. When? Would this Saturday work for you? Around 2 in the afternoon? Saturday was 4 days away. Rachel felt her stomach do a little flip. Saturday works? Perfect. I'll coordinate with the recipient and confirm everything. We'll send you an email with all the details. And Rachel, what you did, what you continue to do by donating regularly, it matters. It really matters. After they hung up, Rachel just sat there on her couch staring at the wall. Jen was at work, wouldn't be home for another few hours. The apartment felt too quiet. She pulled up her phone and texted Jen, "You're not going to believe what just happened." The next few days felt weird. Rachel found herself thinking about this mystery woman constantly. What would she be like? What do you even say to someone whose life you saved? Your welcome seemed inadequate. No problem seemed too casual. The whole thing felt surreal. She told Jen everything that night over dinner. Jen's eyes got wide with excitement. Oh my God, you have to let me know everything. What if she's like super famous? What if she's a judge or a scientist or something? I don't think it works like that, Rachel laughed. She's probably just a regular person. A regular person whose life you saved. Do you realize how incredible this is? You've been donating for years and now you get to see the actual impact. That's huge. Jen was right, but Rachel felt something else too. Nervousness. Anxiety. She kept having this irrational fear that she wouldn't live up to whatever expectations this woman had. What if the woman thought blood donors were all heroic, selfless people? And then she met Rachel and realized she was just someone who happened to have rare blood and 45 minutes to spare every few months. Saturday morning arrived too fast. Rachel changed her outfit 3 times, which was ridiculous. It wasn't a date or a job interview. It was just coffee with a stranger. Except it wasn't just anything, and that was the problem. She arrived at the daily grind 15 minutes early, which was typical for her. Better early than late, her dad always said. The coffee shop was moderately busy with the usual Saturday afternoon crowd. College students on laptops, a couple of families, someone reading a book in the corner. Rachel ordered a latte and found a table near the window where she could see the door. She wanted to see the woman arrive, have a moment to prepare herself. Diana had sent an email with a description. Brown hair, average height, would probably be wearing a blue jacket. Not much to go on, but enough. 2 o'clock came and went. 2:05, 2:10. Rachel started to wonder if the woman had changed her mind. Maybe she got cold feet too. Maybe this whole thing was a mistake. Then the door opened and a woman walked in. Brown hair, blue jacket, looking around the coffee shop like she was searching for someone. Rachel's heart started pounding. This was it. The woman's eyes scanned the room and then they landed on Rachel. Something happened in that moment. Something Rachel couldn't quite read. The woman's face went pale. Her hand gripped the door handle like she needed it for support. Rachel stood up, raising her hand in a small wave. The woman didn't move. She just stood there, frozen in the doorway, staring at Rachel with an expression that was part shock, part disbelief, part something else entirely. Other customers were starting to notice. The woman was blocking the door. Someone behind her said, "Excuse me," and she stepped aside automatically, but her eyes never left Rachel. Rachel felt confused now, and a little alarmed. Was the woman okay? Was she having a medical episode? Rachel started to move toward her, concerned. The woman finally moved too, walking slowly toward Rachel's table like she was approaching something dangerous or fragile. As she got closer, Rachel could see her face more clearly. There was something familiar about her features, something in the shape of her eyes, the line of her jaw. And then it hit Rachel like a physical blow. The recognition came all at once, slamming into her chest and stealing her breath. She knew this woman. She knew her better than almost anyone in the world, even though she hadn't seen her in 12 years, even though they had sworn they would never speak again. The woman standing in front of her was Margaret Torres. Her mother. Rachel's legs went weak. She had to grab the back of the chair to steady herself. This wasn't possible. This couldn't be happening. Of all the people in Portland, in Oregon, in the entire world, how could it be her? Rachel. Her mother's voice was barely a whisper, broken and trembling. Tears were already streaming down her face. Oh my God, Rachel. People in the coffee shop were definitely staring now. Rachel didn't care. She couldn't breathe properly. The room felt like it was tilting. Mom. The word came out strangled, disbelieving. Margaret reached out with a shaking hand, then pulled it back, uncertain. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know it was you. They don't tell you who donates. I had no idea. You're the patient? Rachel's mind was racing, trying to make sense of this impossible coincidence. You're the one who needed the blood? Yes, I had surgery. There were complications and I needed transfusions. They told me about the donor program, and I wanted to meet the person who saved my life. I wanted to say thank you, but I never imagined. Her voice broke completely. I never imagined it would be you. Rachel sank back into her chair, her legs unable to hold her anymore. Her mother sat down across from her, both of them crying now, both of them trying to understand what had just happened. 12 years. 12 years of silence, of hurt, of both of them being too stubborn and too proud to reach out. 12 years of missed birthdays and holidays and ordinary days. 12 years of Rachel telling herself she didn't need her mother, that she was better off without her. And now this. Now the universe or fate or random chance had put them in the same coffee shop, connected by blood in the most literal way possible. I don't understand, Rachel managed to say. You live in Seattle. What were you doing in Portland? I moved here 2 years ago, Margaret said, wiping her eyes with a napkin. After your father and I divorced, I got a job at a library downtown. I thought about reaching out so many times, but I didn't think you'd want to hear from me. You've been here for 2 years? Rachel felt another wave of shock. Her mother had been living in the same city, maybe just a few miles away, and Rachel had no idea. I'm so sorry, Margaret said, fresh tears falling. I'm sorry for everything. For what I said, for how I treated you, for all the time we've lost. Rachel couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight. She looked at her mother. Really looked at her for the first time in over a decade. She looked older, tired. There were lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before, but she also looked different in a way Rachel couldn't quite name. Softer, maybe. Less rigid. The barista appeared at their table, concerned. "Are you ladies okay? Can I get you anything?" "Water," Rachel managed. "Please." After the barista left, they sat in silence. There were so many things to say, 12 years of things, and neither of them knew where to start. Finally, Margaret spoke. "You saved my life. My own daughter saved my life, and neither of us knew it." Rachel felt something crack open in her chest, something that had been locked up tight for a very long time. She didn't know if it was grief or relief or something else entirely. All she knew was that nothing would ever be the same after this moment. The water arrived, but neither of them touched it. They just sat there, staring at each other across the small table, tears drying on their faces, the weight of 12 years pressing down on them like something physical. Rachel's mind kept circling back to the same impossible fact. She had saved her mother's life. The woman she had cut out of her life, the woman she had told herself she never wanted to see again, had been lying on an operating table bleeding out while Rachel sat in a donation chair watching the rain. And somehow, impossibly, her blood had been the exact match at the exact moment it was needed. "Tell me what happened," Rachel finally said. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, too calm for how she felt inside. "The surgery." Margaret took a shaky breath and wrapped her hands around the water glass without drinking from it. "It was supposed to be simple. I had a fibroid that was causing problems, so they scheduled a routine procedure to remove it, outpatient surgery. I was supposed to be home the same day." She paused, looking down at the table. Rachel noticed her mother's hands were older too, the veins more prominent, age spots she didn't remember. "Something went wrong during the surgery. They're not entirely sure what, but I started hemorrhaging. The doctors couldn't stop it fast enough. I lost a lot of blood, more than half of what was in my body. They said my blood pressure dropped so low that..." She swallowed hard. "They told my sister later that I was minutes away from organ failure." Rachel felt sick. She had been at work that day, probably complaining about her presentation while her mother was dying. "They called for blood immediately," Margaret continued. "But I have AB negative, which is rare. The hospital didn't have enough on hand. They put out an urgent request to the Red Cross, and your donation arrived just in time. 20 minutes later, and..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. "I didn't know," Rachel whispered. "I mean, I knew it was urgent. The nurse told me someone needed it right away. But I didn't know it was that urgent. I didn't know it was life or death." "Every donation is potentially life or death," Margaret said softly. "That's what the doctor told me afterward. He said someone made the choice to donate that morning. Someone who didn't owe me anything, just decided to give their blood to help a stranger. And that stranger was my daughter." The word daughter hung in the air between them. Rachel hadn't heard her mother call her that in so long. For years, she hadn't been sure she was still her mother's daughter, not after everything that had been said. "Why didn't you reach out?" Rachel asked, and she hated how much pain was in her voice. "You've been in Portland for 2 years. Why didn't you try to contact me?" Margaret's eyes filled with tears again. "I wanted to. God, Rachel, I wanted to so many times. I would drive past your apartment building sometimes just to feel closer to you. I looked you up on social media. Even though your profiles are private, I wrote emails I never sent, letters I never mailed. But after what I said to you, after the way we left things, I didn't think I had the right to intrude on your life." Rachel remembered the fight like it was yesterday, even though it had been 12 years ago. She had been 20, home from college for the summer, finally ready to tell her parents the truth about herself. She had been seeing someone, a woman named Christina, and it was serious. She wanted her parents to know, wanted them to meet Christina, wanted to stop hiding. Her father had been quiet, processing, but her mother had exploded. The things she said that night were burned into Rachel's memory. Words about disappointment and sin and how Rachel was throwing her life away. Words about how she had raised her daughter better than this. Words that cut deeper than any physical wound. Rachel had left that night and never came back. She finished college, moved to Portland, built a life without her parents in it. Her father tried to maintain contact for a while, awkward phone calls every few months, but eventually even that faded away. And then 5 years ago her parents divorced, and Rachel only knew because her aunt told her. "You said I was disgusting," Rachel said quietly. "You said you were ashamed of me. You said I was going to hell." Margaret flinched like she'd been slapped. I know I said those things. I was wrong, Rachel. I was so wrong. Why? Because you almost died? Because I saved your life? If that surgery had gone fine, would you still think I was wrong? Or would you still believe all those things you said? No. Margaret leaned forward, urgent. No, Rachel, listen to me. I've regretted those words every single day since I said them. Not because of the surgery, not because of this. I regretted them the morning after I said them. I wanted to apologize the next day, but you were already gone. And then days became weeks and weeks became months, and I was too proud and too scared to admit how wrong I was. She was crying again. Harder now. Your father tried to tell me. He said I was destroying our family over something that didn't matter. That what mattered was that you were happy and healthy and good. And he was right. We fought about it for years. It's part of why we divorced. He couldn't forgive me for driving you away, and honestly, I couldn't forgive myself either. Rachel felt something twist in her chest. She had blamed her mother for the divorce, but had never known the details. She had assumed her parents had simply drifted apart, the way couples sometimes do after their children leave home. The things I said came from fear, Margaret continued, her voice shaking. Fear that I didn't understand you. Fear that your life would be harder because of who you love. Fear that I had somehow failed as a mother. But those were my fears, my failings, not yours. You weren't the problem. I was. A young couple at the next table got up and moved to a different spot, clearly uncomfortable with the emotional conversation happening next to them. Rachel barely noticed. Do you know what the worst part was? Rachel asked. It wasn't even what you said. It was that you made me feel like I had to choose between being myself and having a family, like I couldn't have both. Like loving who I love meant losing you. I know, and you should have never had to make that choice. No one should ever have to make that choice. I built a whole life without you, Rachel said, and she could hear the anger creeping into her voice now, rising up from where she'd buried it years ago. I graduated college. I got jobs. I moved apartments. I fell in love. I got my heart broken. I fell in love again. I had birthdays and holidays and ordinary Tuesdays, and you weren't there for any of it. You weren't there because you chose not to be. You're right. You're absolutely right. Jen and I have been together for 3 years. 3 years, and you've never met her. She's wonderful, Mom. She's kind and funny, and she makes me happy, and you would know that if you had bothered to know me. Margaret was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Rachel. They sat there, both of them crying, both of them releasing years of pain that had been trapped inside. Other customers pretended not to watch, but Rachel could feel their eyes. She didn't care anymore. I don't know if I can forgive you, Rachel said honestly. I don't know if this changes anything. I understand. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I was wrong. That I've been wrong for 12 years. And that I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the woman you've become, even though I haven't been there to see it. How do you know what kind of woman I've become? You don't know anything about me anymore. I know you donate blood every few months, even though you hate needles. Your aunt told me you've been doing it since college. That tells me you're selfless and brave. Rachel felt a fresh wave of tears. She had forgotten that her aunt knew about her donations. Her aunt was her mother's sister, and they had maintained a relationship over the years, careful and quiet, without telling Margaret too much. I know you work in graphic design, Margaret continued, that you're good at it. I know you have a garden on your apartment balcony. I know you run marathons for charity. I know more than you think, because I never stopped caring about you. I never stopped loving you, even when I did everything wrong. Then why didn't you reach out? Rachel asked again, because she needed to understand. If you loved me, if you regretted it, why did you stay away? Shame, Margaret said simply. I was ashamed of what I'd done, ashamed of the things I'd said. And the longer I waited, the harder it became. How do you apologize for 12 years? How do you ask for forgiveness when you've missed your daughter's entire adult life? I didn't think I deserved to reach out. I didn't think you'd want to hear from me. I wouldn't have, Rachel admitted. If you had called me a year ago or even 6 months ago, I would have hung up. I was so angry at you. I'm still angry at you. You have every right to be. They fell silent again. Outside the window, the Portland afternoon continued. People walked by with shopping bags and coffee cups, living their normal lives, unaware of the earthquake happening inside this coffee shop. Rachel thought about the donation that had brought them here. The statistical impossibility of it. AB-negative blood was rare. Only 1% of the population had it, which meant she had inherited it from one or both of her parents. Of course, she had her mother's blood. She had always had her mother's blood, flowing through her veins, keeping her alive. And on that March morning, when she had rolled up her sleeve and let the nurse put in the needle, she had given some of that blood back, given it to the person who had given it to her in the first place, given life to the person who had given her life. The symmetry of it was almost too much to comprehend. "What happens now?" Margaret asked quietly. "I don't expect anything, Rachel. I don't expect you to want a relationship with me. But I'm glad we had this conversation. I'm glad I got to tell you I was wrong." Rachel looked at her mother, really looked at her. She saw the age and the regret and the hope that Margaret was trying hard to hide. She saw 12 years of absence and pain, but she also saw something else. She saw the possibility of something different. She didn't know if she could forgive her mother. She didn't know if they could rebuild what had been broken. But for the first time in 12 years, she thought maybe, just maybe, she wanted to try. "I don't know what happens now," Rachel said honestly. "This is all so much. I need time to process it, to think about what I want. Of course, take all the time you need. But maybe," Rachel hesitated, "maybe we could meet again. Just to talk. No pressure, no expectations, just coffee and conversation." Margaret's face transformed with hope. "I would like that. I would like that very much. I can't promise anything," Rachel warned. "I can't promise I'll forgive you or that we'll be okay. I have a lot of hurt to work through. I know. I understand. But Rachel, thank you. Thank you for being willing to try. And thank you for saving my life, even though you didn't know it was mine to save." Rachel nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She stood up, and so did Margaret. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then, awkwardly, tentatively, they hugged. It was brief and uncomfortable and nothing like the hugs Rachel remembered from childhood. But it was a start. When Rachel left the coffee shop and stepped out into the afternoon air, she felt like the world had shifted on its axis. Everything looked the same, but nothing was the same. She pulled out her phone and called Jen. "How did it go?" Jen answered immediately. "You're not going to believe this," Rachel said, her voice still shaky from crying. "You're not going to believe any of this." Rachel spent the next 2 weeks in a fog. She went to work, came home, ate dinner with Jen, but her mind was somewhere else entirely. She kept replaying that moment in the coffee shop, the shock on her mother's face, the impossible coincidence that had brought them together. Jen was patient with her, letting her process in her own time. But after 2 weeks of watching Rachel stare off into space, she finally sat her down on the couch and said, "You need to talk to her again. This is eating you alive." "I know," Rachel said. "I'm just scared." "Of what?" "Of everything. Of getting hurt again. Of hoping for something and being disappointed. Of opening that door and letting all the pain back in." Jen took her hand. "You saved her life, Rach. That has to mean something. The universe doesn't do things like that for no reason." "I don't believe in the universe working that way," Rachel said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Maybe you should start." So Rachel texted her mother. Just a simple message, "Can we meet again? Same place, same time, next Saturday." The response came within minutes. "Yes, I'll be there." "Thank you." The week crawled by. Rachel found herself nervous in a way she hadn't been the first time. Now she knew who she was meeting. Now there was history and hurt and hope all tangled together in a knot she didn't know how to untie. Saturday arrived gray and drizzly, typical Portland spring weather. Rachel showed up at the daily grind 10 minutes early again, ordered the same latte, sat at the same table. This time she knew what to expect. Or she thought she did. Margaret arrived exactly on time, wearing a different jacket but the same uncertain expression. They exchanged awkward hellos and sat down. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Thank you for agreeing to meet again," Margaret finally said. "I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure either," Rachel admitted. "But I have questions. A lot of questions. And I need answers before I can figure out what I want." "Ask me anything." Rachel had spent the week making a mental list, but now that the moment was here, she didn't know where to start. She decided to begin with the thing that had hurt the most. "Did you ever try to understand?" she asked. "After I told you about Christina, did you ever try to learn about what being gay actually means? Or did you just decide I was wrong and that was that?" Margaret winced but didn't look away. "At first I didn't try. I was stubborn and convinced I was right. I thought if I just held firm, you would realize you were making a mistake and come back. Your father kept leaving articles around the house, books about parents of gay children trying to educate me. I ignored them. For how long? Too long. About 6 months after you left, I finally picked up one of the books. I was angry at your father for leaving them around, so I thought I'd read it just to prove him wrong. But I couldn't prove him wrong because everything in that book made sense. It talked about how being gay isn't a choice, how it's just part of who someone is. It had stories from other parents who had struggled and eventually accepted their children. She paused, taking a sip of her coffee. I realized I didn't actually know anything. All my opinions were based on what I'd been taught growing up, things I'd never questioned. And when I started questioning them, they all fell apart. But you still didn't reach out to me? No. By then, I was ashamed. I had already done so much damage. I thought about calling you, but what was I going to say? Sorry, I was a terrible mother. I read a book now. It seemed too little, too late. Rachel felt tears pricking at her eyes. It wouldn't have been too late, not then. If you had called 6 months later and apologized, really apologized, I would have answered. I would have listened. I know that now. But at the time, I was a coward. I convinced myself you were better off without me, that I had already hurt you too much and any contact would just make it worse. That wasn't your decision to make, Rachel said, anger creeping into her voice. You don't get to decide what's better for me. You don't get to cut yourself out of my life and call it protection. You're right. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing, Rachel snapped, loud enough that people at nearby tables looked over. She lowered her voice. Stop saying you're sorry. I need more than apologies. I need to understand how you could throw me away like that. I'm your daughter. I'm your only child. How could you choose your beliefs over me? Margaret's face crumpled. I didn't think of it as choosing. I thought I was trying to save you. Save me from what? From being happy? From being myself? From hell? From sin? From eternal damnation? Margaret said the words like they hurt her mouth. I know how that sounds now. I know how ridiculous and harmful it is. But at the time, I genuinely believed that if you continued down that path, you would be punished in the afterlife. And I thought it was my job as your mother to prevent that, even if it meant being cruel in this life. Rachel stared at her. You thought kicking me out and calling me disgusting was saving me? I thought tough love would make you reconsider. I thought if I made it clear that your choices had consequences, you would change your mind. I didn't understand that it's not a choice. I didn't understand anything. Do you understand now? Yes, God, yes. It took me years, but I understand now. And I don't believe those things anymore. I don't believe being gay is a sin. I don't believe you're going to hell. I don't believe any of the things I said to you that night. What changed? Rachel asked. What made you finally see it differently? Margaret was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. A lot of things, reading, listening to people's stories, watching families get torn apart by the same beliefs I had. But mostly it was losing you. Losing you was worse than anything I thought I was saving you from. I would rather have you in my life happy with who you are than not have you at all. That's not enough, Rachel said, and she was crying now. I need you to understand that it's not about choosing between having a gay daughter and not having a daughter. I need you to understand that there's nothing wrong with me. There never was. I know that now. I do you? Rachel challenged. Or are you just saying what I want to hear because I saved your life? I'm saying it because it's true. Rachel, I've spent the last 8 years unlearning everything I was taught. I've gone to therapy. I've joined a support group for parents of LGBTQ children. I've done the work even though you weren't there to see it. I did it because I needed to understand my own child, even if I thought I'd never get the chance to tell you. This was news to Rachel. You've been in therapy? For 5 years. After your father left, I had to face the fact that my beliefs had destroyed my family. The therapist helped me understand where those beliefs came from and why they were wrong. It's been hard unlearning 40 years of conditioning, but I've done it. Rachel didn't know what to say. She had imagined this conversation so many times over the years, but never like this. In her imagination, her mother either remained stubbornly wrong or gave a shallow apology without real understanding. She hadn't expected this level of self-awareness and change. Tell me about Jen, Margaret said softly. You said you've been together for 3 years? Rachel felt defensive. Why do you want to know? Because she's important to you. Because she's part of your life. Because I should have asked 12 years ago when you tried to tell me about Christina. Rachel took a shaky breath. Jen is wonderful. She's a teacher. 2nd grade. She loves kids and they love her. She's patient and kind and funny. She makes me laugh even when I'm having the worst day. She supports my blood donations even though she thinks I'm crazy for doing something I'm scared of. She's my best friend. Do you love her? Yes, very much. Then I'm happy for you, Margaret said, and she sounded like she meant it. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to be happy. I needed to hear you say that 12 years ago. I know, and I can't change that. But I'm saying it now and I'll keep saying it for as long as you'll let me. They sat in silence for a while. Rachel felt exhausted, wrung out from the emotional intensity of the conversation. But she also felt something loosening inside her, something that had been clenched tight for years. I met someone in my support group, Margaret said. Another mother whose son came out to her. She rejected him completely, said terrible things, kicked him out. 2 years later, he died in a car accident. She never got to apologize. She never got to make things right. Margaret's voice broke. When I was in surgery, when I was bleeding out, all I could think was that I was going to die with things unresolved between us. I was going to die with you thinking I hated you, when the truth is I never stopped loving you. Not for one single day. Then why did it take almost dying for us to have this conversation? Because I'm a coward. Because I was afraid. Because I convinced myself you were better off without me. But you saved my life, Rachel. You gave me a second chance, literally, and I'm not going to waste it. Rachel wiped her eyes. I need you to meet Jen. Margaret looked up, surprised. Really? If we're going to try to rebuild anything, she needs to be part of it. She's my family. She's the family I chose when I didn't have the family I was born with. I would love to meet her, whenever you're ready. And I need you to understand that this doesn't fix everything. One conversation doesn't erase 12 years. I'm still angry. I'm still hurt. It's going to take time. I understand. I'll wait as long as it takes. I'm going to mess this up, Rachel said suddenly. I'm going to say things I don't mean because I'm still angry. I'm going to pull away when things get hard. I'm going to be difficult. I'll mess up too, Margaret said. I'll say the wrong thing. I'll try too hard or not hard enough. I'll disappoint you. Probably. They looked at each other across the table, and for the first time, Rachel saw something like understanding pass between them. This wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be a fairy tale reunion where everything was instantly forgiven and forgotten. It was going to be messy and complicated and painful. But maybe that was okay. Maybe the messy, complicated, painful things were the ones worth fighting for. Can I ask you something? Margaret said. Do you believe in fate? In things happening for a reason? Rachel thought about it. I don't know why. Because of all the blood donors in Portland, of all the people with AB negative blood, of all the times you could have donated, of all the hospitals I could have gone to. The chances of it being you, of your blood being the one that saved me, they're astronomical, and I can't help but think that maybe the universe was giving us both a second chance. Maybe, Rachel said, or maybe it was just an incredible coincidence. Does it matter which it is? I guess not. When they left the coffee shop this time, they hugged again. It was still awkward, still uncertain, but it lasted a little longer. As Rachel walked to her car, she felt lighter somehow, like she'd put down a weight she'd been carrying for 12 years. She called Jen on the way home. How did it go? Jen asked immediately. It was hard, Rachel said, but I think it was good. And Mom wants to meet you. There was a pause. You just called her Mom. Rachel realized Jen was right. For 12 years, she'd referred to Margaret by her first name, refusing to acknowledge the relationship. But somewhere in that coffee shop, something had shifted. Yeah, Rachel said softly. I guess I did. The first dinner together was a disaster. Rachel had suggested meeting at a casual Italian restaurant, neutral territory where they could all feel comfortable. But from the moment they sat down, tension filled the air like humidity before a storm. Margaret was trying too hard, asking too many questions, her nervousness making her talk faster than usual. Jen was polite but guarded, protective of Rachel in a way that was both touching and slightly uncomfortable. And Rachel sat between them feeling like a translator at a peace negotiation that might fall apart at any moment. So you teach 2nd grade? Margaret asked for the 3rd time, apparently forgetting she'd already asked this. Yes, Jen said patiently. For 6 years now, that must be rewarding. Children that age are so sweet, they are, though they're also walking germ factories and terrible secret keepers. Margaret laughed a little too loudly at this mild joke. Rachel wanted to crawl under the table. The dinner lasted an hour and a half that felt like 6 hours. When they finally said goodbye in the parking lot, Rachel apologized to both of them. "It's okay," Jen said later as they drove home. "First meetings are always awkward. She's trying. That counts for something. She's trying too hard. Give her time. She's probably terrified." Rachel knew Jen was right. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally were two different things. The next few dinners were marginally better, less forced, though still uncomfortable. Margaret slowly learned to relax a little, to ask fewer questions and listen more. Jen gradually let her guard down, sharing stories about her classroom and her students, but it was the day Margaret came to their apartment for the first time that things really began to shift. Rachel had been nervous about inviting her mother into the space she shared with Jen. This was their home, the life they'd built together, and letting Margaret in felt vulnerable, but Jen had insisted. "She needs to see how you actually live," Jen had said. "Not just who you are in restaurants and coffee shops, but who you are here, where you're most yourself." Margaret arrived with a bouquet of sunflowers, Rachel's favorite, though she'd never told her mother that. Apparently her aunt had mentioned it. She stood in the doorway looking uncertain until Rachel invited her in. The apartment was small but cozy, full of plants and artwork and photographs. Margaret walked slowly through the living room, taking it all in. She stopped at a gallery wall of photos. Rachel and Jen at the coast, at marathons, at Pride, at ordinary moments that meant everything. "You look happy," Margaret said softly, studying a photo of them laughing at someone's wedding. "I am happy." Margaret turned around and Rachel saw tears in her eyes. "I missed so much. Look at all these moments I wasn't there for." "You're here now," Rachel said, and she was surprised to find she meant it. They had coffee in the tiny kitchen, where Jen made her famous cinnamon rolls. Margaret complimented everything, but it didn't feel forced this time. She asked about the plants on the balcony, and Rachel found herself talking about the garden she'd started, how therapeutic it was to make things grow. "Your grandmother loved gardening," Margaret said. "You must have gotten it from her." It was the first time Margaret had connected Rachel to the family history in a positive way, acknowledging that who Rachel was came from where she came from. Something about that acknowledgement felt healing.